Hello, Jeff Zwerink, and welcome to the segment of 2819 where we get to take a deeper dive and explore the scholarly and intellectual issues surrounding a topic. Today we're going to talk with Ken Samples, and we're going to be looking at the question, can all the world's religions be true? Ken, good to have you here today.
Hi, Jeff.
So there's a lot of different things that people believe, different gods, different creatures, different the way the world works, and different explanations for everything. And there's kind of this prevailing idea that everybody's kind of got their own truth, or everybody can kind of believe what they want. And it seems like that kind of flies in the face of there being a truth. You know, how do you respond to the question, can all the world religions be true?
Yeah, I have three fundamental problems with that. The first one is, they all teach different things, and it's not minor beliefs. Like in Christianity, maybe my church, we baptize infants, you only baptize adults, or we may have secondary views about the Lord's Supper. No, these are fundamental differences. I mean, some religions believe in one God, some religions believe in many gods, other religions believe the universe is God. So we can't agree as to what God is, and we don't even agree about who God is. Is God a person? Is he not a person? Second problem.
So it's not just that there are some differences, that there are fundamental differences that if one's true, the other one can't be because they believe contradictory ideas as opposed to just difficult to reconcile.
And so for point one, these are not small differences. They're genuine differences. Second reason, there's no lowest common denominator. I mean, there's no ultimate reductionistic point of view in which we can find. I mean, some might say, well, what about ethics? Don't Jews, Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists have similar ethics? Well, they all have the second 5 of the 10 commandments, but their ethical ideas are tied to very different ideas of theology. For example, in Christianity, we treat people with dignity and value because they're made in the image of God. So our theology drives our ethics. That's the second reason,
okay.
No lowest common denominator. And third is the biggest issue, and you've alluded to it. They not only have differences, they are logically contradictory. I'll give you a real good example. Christianity and Islam. Christianity says Jesus Christ is God incarnate. Islam says Jesus Christ is not God incarnate. Now, they negate or deny each other. One of those is wrong. So the idea that all religions are true is it's logically conflicting and I think therefore false.
So, I mean, I know there are people who may argue that they're all just variations on a theme or whatever, and I think I think a lot of people would agree with your assessment that there's no way all of them can be true. So that's maybe a less controversial question than this one is, how can we tell if one and only one of them is true? What would we do to evaluate that question?
Well, I think we could probably do a few things. I talk about in my book, A World of Difference, I talk about worldview tests. One of the worldview tests is, the first one would be the logical coherence test. I mean, if you have a religion and it's filled with contradictions, and there's no way of kind of, bringing it to a kind of a rational conclusion, I think that's a negative test. If your religion is filled with logical contradictions, it's going to be false. Now, if it's not, then we can move to another test.
Well, okay, so that's an interesting question because a lot of people would say, you take Christianity. Well, you've got this God in the Old Testament who's vindictive, wrathful, and that yet he's claimed to be a God of love, that would be a contradiction. Is that the sort of thing you're talking about?
Well, it's certainly true that even in Christianity, people raise questions. I mean, we believe in mysteries, the Trinity, the incarnation, or even the attributes of God. How can God be wrathful? How can God be loving? But of course, what we do in Christianity is we say that a mystery is not a contradiction. It's true, we may not know exactly how it's true, but Christian thinkers through the centuries have proposed models for why the Trinity isn't a contradiction, why the incarnation is not a contradiction. And in case of God's wrath and his goodness, well, for God to be just, he has to be both loving and just, and therefore wrath and love are not contradictory. That's not an easy issue to settle, but it's a fundamental question.
So it seems like what's going on there is not, do things appear to be contradictory? I think it sounds like you're talking about something that, when you get down to it, like you said with the difference between Christianity and Islam, either Christ is God incarnate or he's not God incarnate. You can't have both together at the same time.
And let's say in some of the Eastern religions, Hinduism would be an example, they kind of revel in the idea of contradiction.
Right, okay.
So at that point, I'm concerned. Now, if it passes the logical test, and by the way, I think Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all have a lot of logical coherence. At that point, I would start asking other questions like explanatory power. Can a religion, for example, does it have a good explanation as to the world, the universe, fine-tuning in the universe, that the universe had a beginning? How about human beings? Can it explain, as Pascal called, the greatness and wretchedness? Can it explain objective morality and truth? Then I can begin applying and testing and looking at their revelatory books and things of that nature.
So, that's an interesting question, or interesting point you raised there, because I've heard, or people have responded to me in discussions I've had, that they think Buddhism is true because it does the best job of explaining the suffering that we experience in the world. So is it the case that is it sufficient to just find an area like that, or is there more to what you're talking about?
Well, I would say that all of the major religions have certain explanatory power, or people would just candidly reject them. I agree. I think Buddhism, I think Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha, I think he has a diagnosis about the human condition, that, the world is impermanent and people are holding on to things and they're suffering. I think Buddhism's strong point is the idea that it's identified suffering. Now, the solution to the suffering, I don't think is nearly as viable and as powerful as the Christian gospel.
So we've got that you've got to look for internal coherence, logical coherence. You look for explanatory power. What other tools do we have to evaluate worldviews?
I'll throw in one more, what I call the existential test. Is this religion livable? Does it bring a person fulfillment and satisfaction in life? Does it answer some of the deepest yearnings and longings that people have in life? And so in looking at those, we think logically first. We then ask what kind of explanatory power, and then we look inside. Does it answer the existential yearnings of real people?
So I think those are a great set of tools, and I'm just reminded of a challenge that I've heard is that, we're talking about different religions and Buddhism and Christianity and Islam, but a number of skeptics who I've heard will say, you don't believe in all those other gods. I just don't believe in one more than you. So the idea is that all of the world religions are wrong. How do you respond to that